Thanks for coming. This is great. It's always good to have, when I announce a talk that has the word hormones in it, it's usually mostly women and rarely dudes. So dudes, hey, thanks for coming. It's awesome. You're the closest. I'm going to give you a fist bump. So, nice work. But the dudes are always really upset afterwards when they hear about the content because it applies to men and women just straight across the board. So, you all know about the calorie in, calorie out theory. And the theory goes that you're supposed to burn more than you eat. So if you need to lose weight, you either need to eat less or you need to burn more or do both of those things for faster weight loss. And here's the thing. How's that working for you? A theory is based on the act of viewing analytically and generalizing contextually. So it's stepping back and looking at it analytically and then generalizing on the results in the context. And so, but for a theory to move to the next step and become fact, it has to provide evidence through empirical support, which is verified, or show empirically contradictory evidence, which falsifies it. So you've been a test subject for the calorie in, calorie out theory. And this test has been going on for about 100 years. And you've falsified the theory. And so have millions of other people every year prove that diets don't work. So that's why this is still a theory and not a fact. Even if this theory were true, would you want it to be? Because she's skinny, right? That's her lunch. Okay? That's not a very fun lunch. So there's got to be a better way. It's really not about the calories. You've been told it's about the calories through mainstream media and even healthcare professionals because they don't know any better. And this myth just keeps getting perpetuated and people keep repeating it. So here's a good quote about the media. If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed. That's Mark Twain. I agree. If you're still cutting calories, you have been misinformed. It's not about calories. It's about your hormones. And this is a fact. So this is not a theory. And this is the most current scientific evidence and research out there. Bottom line is, your body wants to be healthy and it wants to be lean. A healthy body is lean. Your body wants to be that way. Healthy bodies get lean easily. Most trainers say, hey, let's get that fat off you and then we'll get you healthy. What we say is, let's get you healthy and then your body will go to its natural state of being lean. That's the natural state. Everyone's natural state is health, and part of health is being lean. If we're not in that natural state, it's because we're doing something to get in the way of that, namely messing up our hormones. Healthy body equals balanced hormones. Balanced hormones equals effortless and permanent weight loss. The weight comes off easy and the weight stays off. You can tell if somebody's hormones are balanced because when they want to lose weight, it happens like that. And they can keep it off by changing those habits, but not by counting calories. They eat whatever they want. It's the good foods, it's the choices that they make, and they can eat as much as they want. So, meet Susie. Susie's a serial dieter, multiple failures. She exercised 2 to 3 times a week, so she's actually in pretty good shape, cardio and strength. She was stuck in her overweight status, and she blamed genetics. Well, my whole family's like this, so it must be that problem. Susie got healthy.
Wow.
Susie stopped dieting. Susie ate higher fat and slower carbs. She went off the low-fat philosophy and off the calorie in, calorie out philosophy, and she just made different choices in the foods she was eating. Susie drank more water, less alcohol. Susie balanced her hormones with healthy... Is that a hot button there?
Yeah.
Okay. to balance your hormones with healthy, nutrient-dense foods and habit changes. So, as far as hormones go, insulin is really the ringleader. And if you can control your insulin, you can control the rest of the hormones. And that's important to know because if you know how to keep your insulin low, you are necessarily going to be in a fat burning mode and not in a fat storing mode. And the way that this works is when you're eating slow carbs, like green vegetables, like the stuff you're eating today, your pancreas can basically just stay asleep because there's no sugar in there, there's no fast carbs in there, and so the blood sugar stays low, and your pancreas doesn't have to get involved, doesn't have to kick out insulin to counteract that high blood sugar. And so it just kind of hums along, your insulin level's down here, and you're in fat burning mode. Fast carbs, like sugar, bread, pasta, starches, spike insulin, and they put your body in a fat storing mode. And if you keep doing this long enough, it can lead to insulin resistance, where the cells actually stop hearing the message for insulin. And when you eat fast carbs and your insulin is elevated because your blood sugar is elevated, your pancreas sends out that insulin, and what it's trying to do is to get that blood sugar back down so you don't get hyperglycemic and have other problems that associated with diabetic issues. And it's a great mechanism, and it regulates really well. And the pancreas, however, is working too hard if you're eating a lot of these fast carbs. If you think about how we were 10,000 years ago, and we didn't have the bakeries, and we didn't have the candy, and all the processed foods with really fast carbs, we were eating by default slow carbs. It was the hunter-gatherer kind of foods. If you could shoot it, you eat it. If it grows in the ground, you eat it, that kind of thing. And that's what everybody ate. And then the agricultural revolution, all that started to happen. And it really wasn't a problem until the last 100 years or so when we came out with these processed foods and these really fast carbs that we're pumping into these processed foods. And now, with all those foods, we've got these high blood sugar levels, high insulin levels all day long, and we're in fat storing mode all day long. And after a while, with this insulin always bombarding the cells, pretty soon the receptor sites on those cells just close up and they stop listening. Just like a nagging spouse, cells stop listening after a while. They just get tired of the message. And then the pancreas has to work harder and kick out more insulin because it says, well, they're not listening and the blood sugar's not coming down. So here we go, more insulin. Now you're even in a higher fat storing mode. And then a little bit gets in because of all the insulin in there. Just the pressure. But not enough to bring blood sugar down because there's insulin resistance on those cells. The pancreas has to kick out more, has to work harder. And then eventually diabetes sets in because pretty soon the pancreas just gives up. So low insulin levels is really the key. And if you keep your insulin levels low, you're giving your pancreas a break. And the pancreas does wear out. And it will get fatigued. And then that's where people get diabetes. So it's recoverable. It can come back from that, but the right habits have to have taken place in order for that to happen. So, best friends for the pancreas, best friends forever. The pancreas BFFs are good fats and slow carbs. By good fats, I mean things like coconut oil, grass-fed butter. The saturated fat in really clean meat is actually good for you. The cholesterol in egg yolks is actually good for you. But we've been brainwashed to believe that high fat's bad, cholesterol's bad. Now, in the case of trans fats and processed fats, yeah, that's really bad for you. And that's not a friend of the pancreas. And then the slow carbs, of course, are friends because they keep the insulin level down because your blood sugar's down. And so the pancreas doesn't have to do all this work by kicking out all that insulin. Pancreas enemies are the bad fats and the fast carbs. So this is a good thing. Yes, butter, broccoli. Look how happy they are. They're buddies, they're friends, they're BFFs. They're having a great time, they're partying. It's a great combination. And that's a bad thing. Look how creepy she is. Can you see that creepy smile? Well, that's what Krispy Kreme donuts, any donuts for that matter, are trans fats, bad fats, combined with high carb, and they're really fast carbs. And your body won't absorb fat if your insulin levels are low, if your blood sugar is low. You're just going to use that fat for energy. So you can eat all the fat you want. My diet is super high fat. I probably eat 1,500 calories a day just in fat. And there's a lot of other people that keep that total calorie level under 1,500 in order to lose weight, and that's all the different macronutrients. But I know what kind of fat to eat to make my body want to burn fat. And my insulin levels are really super low, so I'm always in a fat burning mode. So it's really the combination that's the enemy. Fat by itself is not fattening. Even fat with a little bit of protein isn't fattening. It's when you put fat with carbs, because especially the fast carbs, because that raises the insulin and it puts you in that fat storing mode. Now, broccoli's carbs, so why doesn't that raise the insulin? Well, it's because it's a slow carb. All calories are not created equal. All carbs are not created equal. You put me with broccoli, the butter with the broccoli, and you're not going to store the butter. You're just going to burn it off as an energy source. You put that same butter with some sugar, now it goes right into the fat cells.
How about with corn?
It depends. Corn is medium starchy, so it depends on how much you eat, because then it becomes the glycemic load issue. You've all heard about the glycemic index, and so some foods are higher in like a glycemic index than others. And corn is kind of medium-ish, but if you look at the glycemic load of a food, then you can get into trouble, because you can eat a lot of corn, or even a moderate amount of corn, and that could be enough to spike the insulin, your sugar in your insulin, because of that glycemic load. You can eat a medium glycemic index food, and a lot of it, and have a high glycemic load, and then it's just like eating sugar, because your blood sugar's raised, insulin spiked, and then there you go, fat storing. So, pancreas BFFs, healthy fats, like coconut oil, grass-fed butter, grass-fed meat has really healthy fats. Eggs, pasture-raised eggs. Those are really good fats, and they're fat-burning fats.
What's grass-fed butter? I mean, when you go to the grocery store.
Yeah, good question. So, someone teased me the other day when I said that they had a mental picture of butter patties on the grass somewhere in a pasture eating grass. It's from grass-fed cows. So the butter is coming from grass-fed cows. Organic butter is fine, but grass-fed butter is even better, because with organic butter, yeah, they're not getting the hormones and the pesticides and all that in their feed, but they're probably eating grains and corn. And cows were not created to eat grains and corn. And so even if they're not sick and they're relatively healthy, they're still not going to be producing the milk, cheese, meat, things that come from cows in the fat ratio levels that they should be, because when they're eating fat, when they're eating grass, now they're producing everything just the way their bodies are designed to produce it. And when you get fat from a grass-fed cow, you're talking about lots of CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, which is a kind of fat that helps you burn body fat. And you get a lot of omega-3s in there, almost as much as salmon. But those things aren't the case with organic cows. Way better than traditional cows. So I just want to advise everybody in this room, stop today, immediately eating traditional meat, because it's toxic. It's just flat out toxic. It puts you in a fat storing mode, but it also is so toxic that those toxins are being stored in your fat cells, and now it's harder to lose fat because the fat cells are full of toxins.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
You have to be conscious of what you're eating, what did they eat? Seriously, because it does come through. So
Yeah.
traditional meats that we buy in the same place in the world,
Yeah.
or Walmart's, what were those cows fed? Because that's coming right through us.
Yeah. And that's the bottom line. I mean, the traditional cows are eating GMO foods, and which we have no idea how bad that actually is yet because they're so new. And tons of fertilizers, tons of pesticides, chemicals, antibiotics are being pumped into them, and you're eating all that. That's in your meat. And so whether you like it or not, you're eating it.
So you're looking for labels then that say grass-fed?
Yeah. And sometimes the grass-fed label won't say organic also. And that's because the farmer either didn't want to go to the expense or high maintenance of keeping it organic. But you can rest assured if they go to the trouble of having a grass-fed cow, then it's going to be a clean cow. Sometimes it does say both. And sometimes it's coming in from New Zealand. Like all the cows are organic grass-fed over there, but they don't want to pay us to certify them as organic, so they just say it's grass-fed. Like Kerrygold brand butter and cheese, get at Costco, super cheap. That's grass-fed.
What's it called?
Kerrygold, Kerigold. Yeah.
Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
And how easy is it to find grass-fed?
It's getting easier, even in restaurants.
I just bought some grass-fed beef at Costco.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Costco even has it
It's
from time to time. Yeah. Yeah. But you're pretty much guaranteed to get Whole Foods, PCC. PCC is a little bit more strict on their quality of grass-fed than Whole Foods because PCC is 100% grass-fed. Whole Foods might finish it on grain the last 2 or 3 months of the cow's life. Technically, you can still say it's grass-fed, but if the label says 100% grass-fed, that means birth to butcher, it's only had grass.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. So for chicken, is it better to eat like chicken breasts over like thighs or?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Any kind of meat, and white meat, dark meat doesn't matter as long as that chicken is organic and coming from pasture. So free range doesn't necessarily mean that it's running around in a pasture. It means that it has access to a pasture. But chickens are lazy, and they like each other, and they'd rather stay in the hen house hanging out with their friends because they're all the rest of them are in there than go out in the pasture and run around. So the pasture raised are actually forced, kicked out of the house to run around outside. Protein, that's another pancreas BFF. Things like wild Alaskan salmon, grass-fed beef, organic pasture-raised eggs. For vegans, hemp protein. No, you can't get protein from smoking hemp. But it's a great source of protein when you eat it.
So brownies?
Nice. You know what? It's funny that you say that because
Guess what's for dessert?
my nephew Ryan lives in California. He comes up here every summer, and so we hang out. And he's 22, and he's a great chef, and he comes up with amazing recipes. And he invented a brownie recipe that's XGym approved that we're actually putting on the website. So yeah. Top pancreas enemies: sugar, obviously. And the reason that sugar is so bad is because it is very high glycemic and high glycemic load. So it really doesn't matter how much you eat, it's going to get you. It's going to raise that blood sugar and that insulin and put you in a fat storing mode. But the way that it grows isn't actually too bad for us. Because if you ate sugar, see, you know, it's sugar cane, right? And so the middle part is the sugar part, and then it's surrounded by wood. Okay, so it's a stick. If you ate the stick with the sugar, that wouldn't be too bad. Because now you're spending all this energy digesting it because of all the fiber and chewing it because it's a stick. And so sugar cane really isn't that bad an idea. But when you take the middle part out and you take the fiber out of it, then it's a different kind of ratio. And now it's a problem. And then high fructose corn syrup is actually the devil. And I don't know if you can see, but he's got a little cauldron there, and that's where it started. He made the first batch, and that's him making the first batch. It's in the cauldron, he's stirring it up. High fructose corn syrup is taken from corn, and it is actually mostly fructose. And because it's processed, the body sees it as a toxin, and it reacts to it with inflammation, which is another reason that people have trouble losing weight. And it's also highly addictive. And they didn't know this at first, but then they discovered that. They first started using it because it was cheaper than sugar. So that's great, saves money. And they start putting in everything, and then they noticed pretty quickly, within a matter of weeks, that the food manufacturers realized, oh wow, people are addicted to this food now. It must be the high fructose corn syrup. So then they started using it because of its addictive qualities. And they didn't really care about the cost, even though it was still saving them money. They were putting it in stuff right and left. So if you go to the grocery store and you pick up the boxes and you read the processed food ingredients, most of it is going to have high fructose corn syrup. That's not the only addictive ingredient. There's about 300 others that they use too that they've discovered, because that kind of started the whole thing. Oh, what else could be addictive? And then they came up with other chemicals and created things that are also addictive, and those are found in processed foods too. So some more pancreas enemies are things like flour, where bread, cake, pastries comes from, starchy foods, potatoes, rice, cereal, pasta, that kind of stuff. Because all that's going to crank up that blood sugar, crank up the insulin, make the pancreas work really hard, and then pretty soon it's going to go on strike and you got diabetes.
So what about all of the sugar substitutes like Splenda, Stevia, and all of those things that you see out there that are supposed to be okay?
Right. Good question, because the artificial sweeteners are also toxic, and your body knows that they're toxic. And so it's going to take those and put those in the fat cells and then make it harder to burn off fat. The other problem with the artificial sweeteners is, and they just discovered this recently, is that when your tongue tastes it, and whatever food it's accompanying, it's sweeter than the food would be without it. And so the body says, oh, this is a high-calorie food, because it's used to equating the two, sweetness with high calorie. So now it expects a high-calorie meal or a high-calorie food. It doesn't get it. And so it says, it's like cognitive dissonance. Well, this is dietary dissonance. It says, well, this is confusing. And so it actually makes you hungry to make up for the calories that the body thought it was getting but didn't get. That isn't the case, and it hasn't been proven with stevia and with erythritol and xylitol. So those three seem to not have that effect, and probably because they're natural. They're not artificial. So, but of course you want to get organic sources for all three of those as well. Xylitol has a small impact on the blood sugar, so if you're binging on foods that are packed with xylitol, you could potentially raise it enough to have a medium glycemic load kind of thing, but it'd be hard to do. It'd be a lot of food. But erythritol has zero impact, and stevia has zero impact, because stevia is 300 times sweeter than sugar. So all you need is that much. And that much of anything isn't going to, even sugar isn't going to spike your blood sugar or your insulin. So leptin.
Why would you use natural sugar then, rather than stevia, if you're just going to use it to do that?
Well, if you can get away with finding an organic source, that might be okay. So like half a teaspoon probably wouldn't spike your insulin, but it really doesn't have any nutrient density or benefit to you, whereas stevia actually does. And so does erythritol, and xylitol has even been shown to fight cavities. So, those actually have some benefit. So leptin. Talked about insulin. Leptin follows insulin's lead. Leptin tells you when to stop eating. Great, huh? It comes from your fat cells. So when your fat cells are full, they send a message to your brain, okay, we're good. We're full enough, so you can stop eating, and then your hunger goes away. However, insulin shouts louder than leptin, especially when cells are insulin resistant. Because when they're resistant, the pancreas has to keep pumping out more insulin, and this flood of insulin overshouts the leptin. And so you're eating anyways, even though the leptin is trying to shout. It's not being heard. And then chronic shouting by the leptin also causes leptin resistance. So the brain stops hearing the leptin signal because it's the background noise, and it doesn't like that background noise. And so pretty soon it just kind of shuts it out. And that's what leptin looks like when it shouts. That's pretty obnoxious. And so the brain, of course, is going to shut that out. Now, the next one, ghrelin. That competes with leptin. Ghrelin tells you you're hungry. So when your stomach is empty, the hormone ghrelin is messaging your brain and saying, hey, eat some food. Ghrelin happens also to be a liar and a drug addict. So don't trust your ghrelin. Ghrelin waits about 20 minutes after you're truly full to actually tell your brain to stop eating. So it's not going to be a very accurate scale of how full you are. And ghrelin loves dopamine. Dope. It's a dope addict. And dopamine is pumped out when we're eating foods that give us some sort of reward. So, we like usually sweet foods. Sometimes it's savory, but for most people it's sweet. And even thinking about the food can pump out dopamine. And dopamine is the most addictive chemical known to humans, including all the recreational drugs out there. It's more addictive than heroin, cocaine, anything. And so ghrelin and dopamine are buddies. Ghrelin loves dopamine. So he might even delay more than 20 minutes if he needs dopamine hit. Ghrelin also shouts louder than leptin. So leptin's telling you to stop eating. Insulin can drown that out, and ghrelin can shout louder. Because ghrelin is kind of a friendly hormone, because it's telling you to eat, and eating's fun, right? So this is what ghrelin looks like when it shouts. It's happy cheerleaders, and it's fun stuff, and ghrelin's jumping around. So you want to listen to ghrelin, but you don't necessarily want to listen to leptin. Remember what the leptin guy looked like? The last hormone I want to talk about is cortisol, because that actually trumps everything. And you really can't fight cortisol. Cortisol is so strong, and cortisol will prevent you from losing weight, and it can even help increase the weight gain, especially around the middle, because we have more receptor sites in the cells around our middle for cortisol. And that's what cortisol, the dog is cortisol. And see the cat's expression? He's just annoyed. He's not fighting back. He knows he can't. He's just like, oh. And he's just taking it. Well, and look at his buddy that's sitting over here. That's your friend. So like, wow, what happened? So since you can't fight it, you got to make it your friend. Cortisol has some good qualities to it. Cortisol helps shunt blood to the muscles that need to help you get away from a tiger when you're being chased, which is great. Cortisol also helps repair the muscles from when you ran from the tiger, if you survived. And at night. So at night, your cortisol levels go up for repair, all that stuff, because you're breaking down during the day. That's great. Cortisol, awesome. So cortisol does great things too. So this is what it looks like when cortisol is your friend. See, cortisol, again, is the dog and you're the cat. And when you make him your friend, then he works for you, not against you. And to do that, you decrease your stress levels, and you increase your sleep and your quality of sleep, and increase your attitude. So, happy attitude. Because here's the thing, there's an epidemic of high cortisol, especially in this country, because of the news and drama, reality shows, and we're addicted to this drama. And so we're getting this bombardment of bad stuff all day. And our body thinks that we're being chased by a tiger all day. Now, back in the day, before news and drama, we were chased by tigers occasionally, and it would probably last 10 seconds. And then we were either up a tree and safe or being eaten. Okay, well, either way, it's over. And so now you can, if you're up the tree, now you can relax. You go, oh, like this. And so the cortisol helped for a short period of time, and now it shuts off. And that's the way the cortisol system is designed to work. But nowadays, with all this drama and news and bad news and fear, we are constantly running from the tiger. And the cortisol's up all day. And it's being elevated, and our adrenals, the things that pump it out, are getting fatigued. They're wearing out, and which can cause other problems. So it's about reducing the stress, turning off the news, and getting really good sleep and a really good attitude and recovering fast from the stress, so you're not walking around with it all day. There is hope. To eat the right foods, reduce stress, get your sleep, proper attitude, that all equals a healthy body. Healthy body equals balanced hormones. Balanced hormones plus a little bit of patience equals a lean, fit body. It will take care of it itself. You don't even have to try to lose weight. Once you've normalized your hormones, it just happens. But it does take some patience and sticking with it. It's eating the foods that we ate 10,000 years ago, those kinds of foods. And it's eating whole foods, organic. And then the best part is lean, fit body gets you with cute but quiet cheerleaders for the dudes in here. Huh? So, no chance. Roby had no chance for a cute, quiet cheerleader when he started. He's a programmer, made a lot of money, that's great, but he was overweight, soft, out of shape. And now he's got a good chance. So he's all ripped, shredded, great condition. That was 7 years ago, and he still looks like that, so proud of him. So what are the right foods? Well, like I said, food we ate 10,000 years ago, or even 100 years ago, just before the processed stuff that we started making 100 years ago. Foods with one ingredient are awesome. So the foods that don't actually have a nutrition label with ingredients listed, because it's spinach. It's one ingredient. It's meat, beef, fish, one thing. Things that are grown naturally, that are organic, no GMOs. Things that are high fat, the good fat, high protein, high fiber, high water. So the foods that are high water, it's also good to drink water, and you want to make sure that you're drinking lots of really clean filtered water. In fact, 3 or more quarts a day for everybody in this room would be optimal. And at first, you're beating the path to the bathroom, but then your body learns, oh, okay, this is actually usable, and then that starts to get better. So you balance your plate and you balance your hormones. So this is by calories, so this isn't actually by food volume. So by calories, it's mostly fat. And then you've got some protein in there, and you've got some vegetables in there, a little bit of fruit, and then dairy if you're tolerant, and then grass-fed cows. And down here you can't read it, but it says very dark chocolate. But very dark chocolate is kind of bitter. So I have come up with a chocolate recipe, and you can all find this recipe on the XGen recipe page. It's free for anybody, so I want everyone to have it because it's so awesome. And it tastes way better than dark chocolate. The reason that dark chocolate is better is because it has less sugar. So they're just saying, get away from the sugar, get more of the good stuff. Chocolate is actually a superfood. So you want to eat chocolate, but not with the processing and the sugar that comes with it.
When you get a chance, could you go over the diagram again?
Yes, because this is by calories. Now if it were by volume, so if you're looking at an actual plate of food, see this, the fats down here? That would be how much veggies should be on your plate. And then this is about right for protein. And then this would be, the fat. So a lot of it is also along with the protein. So fatty meats and things are fine, eggs, things like that. But mostly veggies on that plate.
So fruit is really something to not overindulge
Yeah.
in because of the high sugar levels.
Yeah. Fruit, there's different kinds of fruit. Fruit is not all created equal. I mean, you can eat lemons and limes all day long, and it's not going to spike your
So
blood sugar or
watermelon.
insulin level.
Watermelon
But watermelon
is
would.
lots of water, but it's lots of sugar.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
So I just wanted to recap of what the diagram says because I can't read it.
Yeah, so down here, it says fats. This is by calories. This says protein. This says vegetables. And this is other stuff, like fruits and things. And if it were by volume of food, this would be vegetables. That would be protein, fat, and then fruits and things. So that's how it would look. So the next talk's coming up. This is a series of 3. The next one is about restoring your youthful metabolism. Everybody always has fond memories of going back in the day when they could eat anything they wanted. And with right food and smart exercise. And then the third one is changing habits easily and making them stick permanently with brain training. So I guarantee you have never heard this information. So I'm sure this will be new information for you, just like this, most of the stuff you heard today was. So now we're going to have some Q&A. We're going to also have some fitness chocolate. Got some in the back there. And here's the ingredients, in case you have any food sensitivities or allergies. Coconut oil, whey protein, erythritol, chocolate stevia, cacao powder, peanut flour, and some are chia seeds. If it looks like a bar, like a chocolate bar, flat like that, then that's got some chia seeds in it, which makes it kind of crunchy, like the Hershey Crackle and Nestle Crunch. Crispy, yeah. And the recipe is posted. It's on xgym.com/recipes. So I'm giving it away for free. This is the nutrient breakdown of this chocolate. So 2.8 grams of fat per piece of chocolate, and it's good fat. This fat actually makes your body burn body fat. So the fat you eat is going to be burned, especially if your insulin levels are low, and then more than that is actually going to be burned. So it's a negative fat food. You can actually get thin eating this chocolate.
So the more you eat, the better you're off?
Well, to a point. I mean, it can, yeah, isn't that nice?
Can you pass this around now?
uh,
Or you can start passing it around?
Yeah, why don't we do that instead of getting up?
Yeah,
We'll just pass it around, yeah. And there's less than a gram of carbs per piece of chocolate. There's a 1/4 gram of fiber. That comes from the cacao, because cacao is high fiber food. And then 2.1 grams of protein in chocolate. You will never find chocolate with hardly any protein with those kinds of numbers. Completely different. And because of that macronutrient ratio and all those numbers, how they work in the body, it makes you burn fat and build muscle, and muscle is your metabolism. So the reason I put it up and given it away for free is because I want people to have this option. Most people like chocolate, and so I want them to be able to eat it and not think it's a bad thing. If you look on the website, you'll notice that it's the recipe comes in a batch. So it's a batch. It's the highest fat burning formula, because there's 3 different recipes, is the bottom one. That's the one you're eating today, and that's made with coconut oil only instead of coconut and some cacao butter. So the coconut oil is the fat burning quality, and the recipe calls for 5 ounces of coconut oil. So by calories, that's a lot of calories. Because
Whey's dairy, right?
yeah, whey is dairy, yeah. And I'm eating a batch a day,
He does.
and I've done it for months.
I asked him, I'm like, TJ, what do you eat? He's like, I eat a lot of
This is
chocolate.
A lot of
And
chocolate.
this is the chai, right?
Wow.
Well, no, I think there's another container in there that just has the square bars,
Okay.
and that has the chia, but those don't have the chia. There you go. Yeah, are we running out of that one? Yeah, we may be running out. You can break it up into smaller pieces too.
does it have the chia seeds, or do you know?
That one does, yeah.
Can you tell us more about what oils are good? You refer to coconut oil quite a bit
Yeah.
versus like olive oil or.
Olive oil is great. It doesn't have the fat burning qualities that coconut oil does, but it's a healthy fat. Just don't cook with it. Use it for salad dressings and mix it in with stuff. Olive oil. Yeah. It denatures, and it's just not a good idea. It's not as healthy if you use it. Coconut oil is great to cook with. Yeah, you've got a really high flash point.
What
Okay.
about grapeseed oil?
Grapeseed oil is another good one to cook with, higher flash point. And it's not a negative fat, but it is going to be a healthy fat.
And it's not a strong flavor. It's like a.
Right. Yes.
Are these all for us? Can I keep passing out?
Yeah. And the thing with the coconut oil is you can get it in two different forms. You can get it in its solid form, and under 75 degrees it's going to be a solid. Over 75 degrees it'll melt. It'll be a liquid. And you can get that at Costco, organic. But it does have a coconutty taste. Not very strong, but it does. Now, if you don't like the coconutty taste, then go for expeller pressed organic coconut oil. And that's a liquid even in the fridge.
How about peanut oil?
What's that?
Peanut oil.
I would say no, only because peanuts are a legume and the omega-3 to 6 ratio of legumes is not optimal. So you want more omega-3s and less omega-6. The typical American gets way too much omega-6 and hardly any omega-3s. So you want to go for the foods, like flaxseed oil is the other way around. So that would be a better option to go with.
What about sesame oil?
Everything you're basing here is like on a paleo diet?
Well, kind of, but I'm okay with dairy and some things that, and paleo's okay with fruit, but I'm not necessarily okay with fruit just because of the sugar composition of it. And but what was your question again?
Just more of the, what are good fats, like,
I'm sorry.
I don't know, male peanut butter.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Some nuts. Seeds are even better. Yeah.
Sesame oil.
Sesame oil, that's what it was.
Oh,
So sesame oil is, again, it's fine for low temperature cooking and for salad dressings and things like that. But it's not going to have the negative fat benefits that omega-3s, or omega-3s, CLA, and coconut oil have. So the kings of the negative fat are coconut oil and grass-fed butter. Those are the kings. Flaxseed oil is it's close behind butter, and there's a pretty big difference between the butter and the coconut oil. Coconut oil is a rock star for being negative fat. And expeller press is actually even better because it has a higher concentration of the type of fat that is the negative fat.
I was in Costco this weekend and they were advertising big bottles of avocado oil. What's the significance of something?
Yeah, I use that too. That's actually one of the top 5, avocado oil, yeah. So feel free to use that as well.
On your recipe for the chocolate, you have whey protein. Can
Yeah.
you do like a soy protein if you can't do dairy?
The protein that I recommend on the page for vegans is the MRM brand veggie protein. And it's going to change the taste of it to be more dark chocolate tasting. So some people might even prefer that. I know a lot of people that actually prefer that recipe, even if they're not a vegan. So there's definitely that option on there.
What is it about avocado oil that's good?
The type of fat in there, the ratio between omega-3 and 6.
So avocados fall in the vegetable range. Good.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Because avocados, it's a fruit,
Yeah.
because it's got a seed in it, but it's very low fructose. So, same with lemons and limes. I eat tons of avocados, but make sure they're organic. And because even though some people are going to say, avocados are okay, not organic, because they got this really thick skins, they don't use this fertilizer because the bugs can't get in them, or the insecticides, but the GMO stuff, now it's growing like weeds, literally. And so I just don't trust it anymore. Unless it says organic, I just don't trust the food anymore. But yeah, avocados are great, and I make tons of guacamole too. So get my organic avocados and throw them in the food processor and put in the packet of seasoning mix from PCC and organic guacamole mix, turn on the food processor, and voila, it's like magic, guacamole.
Quick question, does everybody know what GMO means?
Good
It might be
question.
just worth it.
Genetically modified organism is what that stands for. Some people just say GM foods, genetically modified foods. So what they're doing is they're, on a microscopic level, injecting things into the food to genetically modify it to be resistant to pesticides, so they can grow a crop of corn or soybeans and then make them genetically modified so they're resistant to the Roundup they spray on the whole field. So then the Roundup kills the weeds in between the soy plants, but not the soy plants, because the soy plants are genetically modified to be resistant to Roundup. Well, it's just convenient that Monsanto makes both the fertilizer and the food. So they make a lot of money. They make it on both ends. But that's what GM means. And most soy, probably 98% of soy now is GM, just because of the cross-contamination of crops and stuff. And corn's getting that way. It's over 90% now. So the trend is kind of scary, but if you go with organic, you're going to be pretty safe. Yeah?
So going back to chocolate, so what are the best things about it, and which brands are the best to, or if we didn't want to make our own chocolate, or if we buy our own chocolate, homemade chocolate?
PCC sells 1 or 2 brands that I know of, chocolate bars, that are sweetened with erythritol and stevia. So there are some brands that are sweetened with maltitol, and as long as they're organic, go for it. But maltitol does have a slight impact on blood sugar, even more than xylitol. And maltitol can give you the winds. So you don't want to be around people after you've had a lot of that kind of chocolate for probably 8 hours. But the erythritol doesn't do that.
But the main ingredients that is good in good chocolate is the fat and the protein that your body.
It's the cacao. Cacao is a superfood. So, and I wasn't eating chocolate for probably 7 years. And then I'm like, wow, I kept reading all this great stuff about cacao, but I wasn't willing to eat the commercial chocolate because of the processing and the sugar and all that. So then I was finding some bars that have started to come out in the last couple of years. But they're expensive, like $8 for a small chocolate bar. Oh, wow, I can't afford that. I don't like it that much. And so I wanted to come up with a really good recipe. And so I just started experimenting, and other people helped, friends, Ryan, Bev, my girlfriend, and so people just give this information and pitch in, and then it's like rock soup, just stone soup, that story. So then now we got this great recipe that's awesome.
You eat that every day?
Every day. I can't help it.
Yeah.
It's really good. And if I'm getting low, I get a little bit panicky. I start to sweat. Like, and I see a little bit in the fridge. I'm like, oh man, we're going to schedule make chocolate. But the other cool thing about the recipe is it takes me 10 minutes to make it, because I'm just melting the coconut oil. And by the way, you want to do that on a low temperature because it melts fast. And then turn the stove off when half of it is melted, and then the rest will just melt into it. And you just pour it in the blender. You put all the other ingredients in the blender. You turn on the blender and you pour it out on a cookie sheet if you just want to crack it up, like bark, or in little molds like I have, like you ate today. And you put it in the fridge, and an hour later you've got chocolate. It's like magic.
How do you spell cacao?
CACAO.
You say you drink lots of water. What are your thoughts on carbonated water?
It's fine.
No,
As long as it's like that, it's like spring water. Yeah, it's not a problem. It's the stuff that goes with water that makes it more than water. If it has more than one ingredient, it's carbonation isn't actually an ingredient. It's just carbon dioxide pumped into it, and that's fine. But if it has another ingredient, then it could be artificial sweetener, or it could be natural flavor would be okay. Organic flavored water, that's fine too. Yeah, Jenny.
Question. So let's say I'm going along and I'm eating my 1 or 2 donuts a week and my croissant, and I'm just eating pizza, and I'm just going along, and I said, okay, I'm gonna try this. So I'm gonna change my eating habits, and I'm gonna be very aware of my body. And how long does it take to kind of flush out, turn those hormones around to where they stop ignoring and they stop overworking?
Yeah.
So if I'm
Good question.
diligent, how
Yep.
long is this like 6 months or 6 days? Or?
Some people might be as long as 6 months because of their history. Maybe their fat cells are very toxic. They just built up a lot of toxins in the fat cells. But that would be to the far side of the bell curve, would be 6 months. Other people, the first week. So it just depends, and everybody's different. And I wish I could say, but there's that bell curve. 1 week is on this side, 6 months is on this side, and most people are somewhere in the middle. But it's really more about, I guess, probably more towards this side where most. The average Joe Schmo is going to start seeing results probably 2-3 weeks in, and he's going to continue to compete, continue to lose weight for pretty regularly after that point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm the one that cried when you said less alcohol.
Yeah.
This whole roll, actually.
Yeah.
So, if you drink, you go home, you haven't had anything to eat, you're on an empty stomach, you have a glass of wine, your sugar's going to shoot up much higher.
Uh-huh.
If you drink it with dinner, does it slow down how fast it turns to sugar, or does it not make a difference?
Yeah, technically not.
Okay.
I mean, scientifically maybe, but it's not enough of a difference to, yeah.
Because I heard the same thing about fruit. If you have a piece of fruit and
Yeah.
a piece of protein at the same time, it kind of slows how fast it
slows your gastric emptying, but I've heard that a lot, and I haven't seen any studies that really validate that. It makes sense from a physiological perspective. It makes sense, but a lot of things make sense that don't actually work out that way with the human body. The law of thermodynamics makes sense. Burn more calories than you take in, and it works perfectly for a machine or a car, but for a human with a dynamic metabolism that's adjusting all the time to lots of different things, it doesn't work. It doesn't apply.
So if my thought is if you practice this and then you get to where you feel good, isn't it as soon as if you start turning back around to the high sugar, high glucose, you're going to zap up your weight? I mean,
Yeah, if you turn back around, you go back to the way you were.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you have to, it's a lifetime.
It is, yeah. Because remember, the healthy body is the body that responds to this kind of thing. And it only keeps responding if it stays healthy. So in your healthy state, it will naturally be thin. And your healthy state, of course, involves the eating right and being active, of course. But it also involves the sleep and the stress and take care of yourself.
Hey, personal training opportunities here
Yeah.
in the building.
Right.
Are you guys aware that we're introducing this via PJ?
No?
So I can attest to it. Jenny and I have been working out with him twice a week for I think 4 weeks now, almost a month. And PJ has a different approach to training. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to show you how to get a hold of me. There's all my contact information. There's the book that's out there, the DVD that's out there, and the X Gyms, Alki and Kirkland X Gyms. But then what Katie's talking about is the opportunity to work out in your building gym. And at first it might be with me, but then it would be with some of my X Gym trainers. They're all, of course, trained by me and certified by me. But it's the difference is the way that we train. So the full body workout takes 21 minutes. So it's a big time saver.
Wow. Okay.
And in that 21 minutes, you're getting strength, toning, definition, not bulking, because we specifically designed it to not bulk people up. Just the strength and the toning, and endurance, and cardio, without actually having to do cardio. It looks like weight training, but you're getting cardio because the heart, as far as the heart and lungs are concerned, it's interval training. So it's all based on the latest research and science. No one else is doing it because I invented it. So the X Gym is the only ones doing it, and the results are about 3 times the results of traditional training in less than a quarter of the time. Traditional training was invented back in 1891, so it's pretty outdated. But we've had a lot of really good science since then, and that's what these protocols are based on. So certainly feel free to contact me if.
And I want to
that's
just
an
vouch
option.
for it because Katie and I did this, and I'd heard about this at one point because I read this book, and it's about it's not the length of training, but the intensity and where you want to push into fatigue to where I won't tell it. So
Yeah, no,
push
it's
into
not a
fatigue
secret.
to where your body, when it rebuilds quicker, stronger, faster, because you may got away from the tiger this time, but next time you may not, so your body will respond. But I can tell you a real life case is I hurt my shoulder last fall, so my arm was absolutely, and I've always been a little overweight, and I've always been, but I've always had pretty good strong arms, and so this arm literally atrophied, and I mean it was just like flabby blowing in the wind. And so before we started, I said, this is what I want to do. And this arm was solid and this arm was just flapping. I'm telling you, after 2 or 3 sessions with PJ, I was like, oh my God, look at my arm. I mean, it's still wobbly, but it's 70% better. I mean, it's amazing. To me, that was a real-time results. So yeah, he's awesome.
And again, the bell curve. Jenny's on this side of the bell curve, and then someone else might be 3 months before they start to see those kinds of results. But it's all the bell curve, and most people fall somewhere in the middle of that. But it's very different, and it is full fatigue training. So we do go to complete muscle failure, which sounds dangerous to a lot of people, but we're doing it with light weights, and we're doing it with low reps. So it's completely opposite from anything else out there that you've ever seen. It is even hard for me to explain, even though I invented it, because of how different it is. Because I can't say, well, it's kind of like this or it's kind of like that. It's really not kind of like anything. It's just completely new. But it's about time under tension. So think Tai Chi with dumbbells. Holding weights. That would be hard to do, right? So a lot of control, a lot of time under tension, but you couldn't do it with heavy weights. You couldn't hold 50-pound dumbbells out here. They have to be 5ers. But even then, after 2 or 3 minutes, those get really heavy, and then you reach fatigue and you reach muscle failure. That's when you're getting the change that you're looking for in strength, toning, and all that kind of stuff. Because if the muscle can't do it, if you actually go to failure, then it sees a need for change. It says, oh, I got to get stronger. I got to do that to be different. If the muscle can do it, and you stop when it starts to become difficult, like most people do, well, that last rep, you could still do it. And so the muscle says, well, I could do that. So I'm good as is, right? I'm just going to stay the way I am. No need to change. I can do it.
Our standing appointment right now with PJ is Monday and Thursday at 2:15 in the gym downstairs. So if anyone wants to come work out with us, feel free to join.
Absolutely.
And you'll see us grunting.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to your property managers because they wanted to, this was their idea. I didn't even bring this up. They thought, wow, this, they're always constantly looking for things to provide their tenants. And I know other property managers, but they're like moms. I mean, they're like, what can we do? What can we for this building for our tenants to make it more fun, to provide more services, things like that. So,